When people hear about reparations, they think about handouts, free money, laziness, undeserved benefits. That's a lie. Reparations is about a debt that was never paid. This isn't charity. It's balance due. If America is serious about justice, it has to be serious about paying reparations. Let's have a conversation that the United States continuously ducks.
Reparations are the act of making amends to someone or a group of people who have been wronged. Germany paid billions of dollars in reparations to Holocaust victims or their families and to Israel after the Nazi atrocities of World War II. And in 1988, the U.S. paid more than 80,000 Japanese Americans who were held in internment camps during World War II. They each got $20,000. But African Americans have never gotten reparations for their 246 years of slavery. Lawmakers have introduced bills in Congress to study reparations and whether it's possible, but most have never gotten very far. In 2008, the House of Representatives issued an apology for slavery. And in 2019, bills to study and develop a proposal for reparations were introduced into both houses of Congress. But the legislation languished. Recently, there's been renewed interest, like the Harriet Tubman Community Investment Act, which the Maryland General Assembly is considering. The Brookings Institution says it could be a possible blueprint to what reparations could look like for Black Americans. Under this act, the descendants of slaves in Maryland could receive the following repayments. Tracing the descendants of slaves will be one major challenge. Unlike victims of the Holocaust and Japanese internment camps, there are not a lot of paper trails for the descendants of slavery. The census didn't count Black Americans until 1870, and unlike immigrant groups who have their history documented at Ellis Island, there's no central historical database for the descendants of slaves.
That's the big excuse they use, is that there is, we can't track them. How will we find them? How do we know everybody who's Black in the country was actually a descendant from these slave groups? It can be lost in the sauce, a whole bunch of this stuff. But there is a very, very, very meticulous and clear record of these Black people. They were cargo. They were treated like a commodity. They were a commodity. Like a farm animal, like a car. So do you think that people just lost cars, lost ships, lost valuable things that they were transporting? What was their manifest? What was on it? Bodies, humans, people, us. So for them to tell us, oh, they weren't in the census. No, you can count white people in the census. But you can count us through insurance companies. You can count us through sales, auctions that you guys had where you sold Blacks. You can count us by looking up and tracing back the wealth of the slave owners. And they may not have names, but they damn sure got numbers, how many they had. And those are the things that need to be looked into, and not, oh, well, they weren't on the census. Of course they weren't on the census. We understand that. We also understand that you looked at them as property. You looked at them as just not very much when it comes to the heart. But when it comes to the pocketbook, the slave was everything. If somebody had a rich father-in-law or rich in-laws and they gave you a couple of slaves, do you know the value in that? Do you know what you could do when you own slaves? How they could work your land and clean your house and prepare your meals and raise your children? Do you know how valuable that is? You could go off and do whatever you want to do and know that your children are being fed and put to bed and taken care of and protected. How do you make amends for that? You have to find a way to figure out that we've done the best that we can do for white people in this country, and we haven't done the best that we can do for Black people in this country, and just figure out what doing the best for a group of people as opposed to doing not very much for another group of people. In fact, all the energy that's been exerted toward Black people has been to harm them, to shut them down, to take back, to steal the things that they did scrape together and figure out. But if you owned a slave, and he was kind of smart, and you took him to market with you, and he understood the way you kept your records and your books. He knows your entire operation and what to do, and what he might consider to do to be even better, but not to be disrespectful or tell you. But I'm sure when a lot of these black men got freedom, it took them no time to realize, okay, we know we got to grow something here. We ain't gonna eat for free. They understand that. They knew that from the beginning, but they also knew how to go to market, and because their labor was free, because they were doing it themselves, they could sell their stuff for cheaper than what the white folks were, because the white folks were having to pay newly released slaves, and when they would pay, and it would cost them a little more, so they had to be undercut by the newly released slaves. They didn't like that shit. Start taking their shit, burning down their houses, taking their crops, all of those kind of things. And we are so removed from that people in this country, young black men, I talk to them all the time, and they say, we don't need no. I think they mean, and I might be wrong, but I think they mean we ain't going to get no reparations. I don't think they mean we don't deserve it, or or whatever. I get a sense of we good. And I'm like, gosh, I grew up with my grandfather talking to me, and giving me the feeling and understanding that things weren't real good back then. And my mom, I would follow her around the house, and she would talk to me and tell me, all my stepdad, they would tell me things that were factual, just how things were in the 50s and the 40s and the 30s, and what they had and I'm like, what? No way. They're like, yeah, how normal life was, what they had to go through to get water into their home, or to use the toilet in the middle of the night, and things like that. And I'm like, man. And then to go into town or into normal society and see the different treatment, and understand that it was not just different treatment, it was law. These were laws that were being followed and adhered to. You eat over here, you eat over here, or you eat over here and you go home and eat. You don't even come in here. We do not serve black people. I mean, that was just the bottom line. They were point blank in your face with it. They walk up to you, a meek, timid little old white lady would walk up to a big old black guy and call him the N word, and tell him he need to get up on out of here, and whatever the hell else they wanted to say. It's one of those things that you look back, and you cannot have a weight tied around your neck from the beginning of your meeting white people, and expect for us now to be all good. It can be an illusion. It can be a feeling. It can be a whole lot of shit. It can be a lot of black faces popping up all over the country in entertainment and politics, and who knows whatever else except business ownership. It's not real. And it needs to be made to be real. It needs to really happen. And it should be okay to be black and wealthy, and not be black and wealthy and have a stigma attached to it. Or you have to be loyal to somebody else and not your own people, because if you are, then that isn't why they allowed you to become wealthy. You became wealthy for whatever reason, even if there's no reason, but not to be a person who turns around and goes and helps their community. There should be no black projects. All black people want to do is work hard, get their money, and move up and move out and move on. But you can't do that if moving up and moving out and moving on isn't really available like that. People moved up and moved out when you moved where you live. To be in the area, you may not be the first generation of blacks in that area, but the ones who came before you moved someone out of there. Somebody was like, we out of here. And we're experiencing that with the Latino and illegal immigrant community. Their numbers are way bigger than ours in a lot of areas, and it tends to have us moving away and moving out because we don't have the accommodations in their communities once they basically turn it into their community. And then we just need to have the opportunity to carve out our own little niche, get our own little communities rolling, and be taken serious as far as this reparations talk is going on. We got politicians who throw it out there, Gavin Newsom, with no intent on ever paying a nickel in reparations, because he will say in any reparations speech, reparations isn't all about money. Well, what is it about? That's what we need to be prepared from. That's what we were for you guys. That's all you looked at us as dollar signs. You could use us and abuse us, and all it did was made your life easier, and hell come on us. And we just dealt with it as slaves. And even in this day and age, we do realize what a comfort level with white people means. It means us being able to stay alive. If we make this country feel too uncomfortable about anything that we're doing, it's possible it could get violent, and it can get violent real quick. And it's very, very, very disgusting to think about, but it's a reality. So what we need is an approach that's going to make some sense. We can't keep doing what we were doing, but the civil rights techniques seem to work well for others, but they don't seem to work for us anymore. In fact, they ended in a lot of violence during that era, so it didn't really work for us too well either. But we're going to move on to a new approach. We have to move on to a new approach. We have to unite around a thought, around a belief, and around an idea that we all believe in. And it would have to be something very general for us all to hop on board, because everybody says, oh, that he don't know what he's talking about. She don't know what she's talking about. Oh, they just Uncle Tom. Oh, they just kissing ass. But none of us have the right answer. But we do have to understand that racism has been allowed to, it's been a table that's been allowed to stand. All four legs of that table have been standing strong. And we keep trying to get rid of that table and make it go away and make things better. But tables are strong. And you can take a table that may not look like very much and put a lot of stuff on top of it, and it'll hold it. And it's been holding it. And we need to start working on is the legs of that table. Take out a couple of them legs. Take out one and watch that table dip. Take out two and it's going over. And when we identify those four elements that are the strongest, economics for sure, we're not going to be able to take their money away from them, but we can make sure that every place that we line up where they're abusing us still economically, we're making them money and they're giving us peanuts. We're the reason for everything that's happening, and they're making the most money off of it. All those areas where we touch economically and they're taking an advantage, those things need to be corrected. Those need to be called out and turned around. And every time a black person does it, they call them crazy. They say they don't know what they're talking about, or they want to take the black approach that we've been on for too many decades and not going anywhere. It feels good. It's Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson-ish. It's a good feeling. It's everything they tell you is a victory. You beat your chest and you feel like you really accomplished something when you haven't really. And they know you haven't really, but it's not very hard to get you excited in a speech. We got some soul stirrers when it comes to the speeches. I have you speaking in tongues and shit. So we just need to focus on trying to knock out the foundation, the base, the legs that are holding those tables up. And they'll fall. And quit agreeing with them when they say dumb shit like, we're going to run a study. Well, you ain't running the study on us. You know what's going on. And why you going to run a study on people who you didn't even document? Remember? There's no document of us in your census until I think the 1870s. I mean, that is really a terrible thing, but it's all good. All we need is to see the shit manifest so we can do the math anyway. Figure out how many slaves really made it here. How many did you really bring over? And how many did you get once you came here? So we can do the math properly and find out what the slave trade from Africa to the United States really consisted of. And and continue to add that into the pile. It's just terrible that at the end of all of this, that there was even consideration, and I can't say the end, but during the physical release of the slaves, there was even talk from the United States of returning the blacks to Africa. And they know damn well they didn't even get them all from Africa, but they still willing to take them all back there and get them off of their land. And when you think about that, it's like, it don't sound too bad, really. Like, yeah, take them back. But do you remember that only half or less than half, sometime a third, survived the trip over? And they ended up being shark bait. So, and they were the ones who were coming over here and they were going to make money off of them. What do you think a boatload of blacks would be worth who you can't sell to nobody? You're just giving them deportation. You're just returning them back to where you stole them from. What is their chances of getting back? They're the third that lived. And you're about to take that third and take it back to Africa and expect us to believe that you really give a damn about making that trip? That was a proposal that got shot down real quick. Like, what? Who gonna take them back? There was too many people who still saw a benefit here economically. Even if the black people did have to start being paid or anything else, it wasn't like you hired a white person. It wasn't like you hired somebody you couldn't abuse, pay less, and all that other stuff. So sometime we just need a different approach. I think this is one of those times. Newsom in California is going to drag this shit he's doing over there out until he runs for president. And he thinks that black people from California should be strong supporters. I think the black people in the United States should let them gerrymander these maps, which gives us more power because we don't have to vote the way they're assuming we're going to vote. That's why they're gerrymandering all this shit around the country with expectation. And I say expectation, and that's a weak word. With the knowledge that we're going to vote a particular way. All we got to do is throw a monkey wrench in it and sit down and say, oh, yeah. That district that you guys just flipped, and blacks over there feel like they've been getting kind of the short end. And they want that. Now, wouldn't that piss them off? Yeah, of course it would. Because they don't do this to help us. They do this shit to help them. And we're never going to get reparations if we continue to allow them to treat us like subordinates. We're not. Let the mayors in some of these cities come up with their own ideas and not have to jump on that Democratic agenda. White mayors do it all the time. White governors do it all the time. They get elected and then they go back home, hear it from their constituents, and start rolling in another direction. A black mayor do that shit. Remember Eric Adams? He tried that shit. Biden was pissed. He want to dump a bunch of immigrants in your city and make you pay for them. We ain't giving you nothing. You ought to be able to handle that. It's a grimy little city anyway. They don't care. And then they make the worst things happen in these communities. And anything bad, we're going to be in the midst of it. And then when the National Guard is turned on the city and all that, we got to deal with that too. We ain't do anything to deserve this. Any crime you want to whine and cry about in the United States and blame on black people, explain to me how well educated we are, how many other resources and opportunities we have. It's not like you guys can tell us all the money we spend on black free college educations, all the money we give in grants for black businesses to start up. That would get all black people business owners if they want it to be, which they should be. It shouldn't be no small percentage of blacks owning business. It should be any black who want to own a business. And you should be able to take a couple of chops at the apple because you were denied for generations. So for your grandfather who can never open that business, and his father and their fathers and aunts and uncles and everybody else, if you go up there and the business don't go well because they overtaxed you or cheated you or you just mismanaged it, you should be able to take another bite at that apple and go back and get another loan and try it again. It'll get better and you'll do okay. You should get 3 bites. We like games. We do 3 strikes for prison. Yeah, give them 3 bites at that apple. We get 3 bad things happen to us. Why we can't have 3 good things happen to us? Because they can't think in them terms. And we keep allowing them not to. By supporting that bullshit that they want to do to us to make them feel comfortable. Their comfort is not going to be the priority any longer. Like, comment, share. Please subscribe. We'll see you on the next Black Popcorn.